Okay, Assalamu alaikum. So today our topic of discussion is The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway Detailed Summary. So let's start क्योंकि ज़रा लंबी है तो without any delay let's start. The Sun Also Rises opens with the narrator Jake Berners delivering a brief biographical sketch of his friend Robert Cohen. Jake is a veteran of World War One who now works as a journalist in Paris. Cohen is also an American expatriate, although not a war veteran. He is a rich Jewish writer who lives in Paris with his forceful and controlling girlfriend Frances Kleene. Cohen has become restless of late and he comes to Jake's office one afternoon to try to convince Jake to go with him to South America. Jake refuses and he takes pain to get rid of Cohen. That night at a dance club, Jake runs into Lady Brett Ashley, a divorced socialite and the love of Jake's life. Brett is a free-spirited and independent woman, but she can be very selfish at times. She and Jake met in England during World War One when Brett treated Jake for a war wound. During Jake and Brett's conversation, it is subtly implied that Jake's injury rendered him important. Although Brett loves Jake, she hints that she is unwilling to give up sex and that for this reason she will not commit to a relationship with him. The next morning, Jake and Cohen have lunch. Cohen is quite taken with the Brett and he gets angry when Jake tells him that Brett plans to marry Mike Campbell, a heavy drinking Scottish war veteran. That afternoon, Brett stands Jake up. That night, however, she arrives unexpectedly at his apartment with Count Mippopoulos, a rich Greek expatriate. After sending the Count out for champagne, Brett tells Jake that she is leaving for San Sebastian, Spain, saying it will be easier on both of them to be apart. Several weeks later, while Brett and Cohen are both traveling outside of Paris, one of Jake's friends, a fellow American war veteran named Bill Gordon, arrives in Paris. Bill and Jake makes plan to leave for Spain to do some fishing and later attend the festa at Pamplona. Jake makes plan to meet Cohen on the way to Pamplona. Jake runs into Brett, who has returned from San Sebastian. With her is Mike, her fiance. They ask if they may join Jake in Spain, and he politely responds that they may. When Mike leaves for a moment, Brett reveals to Jake that she and Cohen were in San Sebastian together. Bill and Jake takes a train from Spain to Bayonne in the south of France, where they meet Cohen. The three men travel together into Spain to Pamplona. They plan on meeting Brett and Mike that night, but the couple does not show up. Bill and Jake decide to leave for a small town called Brunte to fish, but Cohen chooses to stay and wait for Brett. Bill and Jake travel to the Spanish countryside and check into a small rural inn. They spend 5 pleasant days fishing, drinking, and playing cards. Eventually, Jake receives a letter from Mike that he and Brett will be arriving in Pamplona shortly. Jake and Bill leave on a bus that afternoon to meet the couple. After arriving in Pamplona, Jake and Bill check into a hotel owned by Montoya, a Spanish bullfighting expert who likes Jake for his earnest interest in the sport. Jake and Bill meets up with Brett, Mike, and Johan, and the whole group goes to watch the bull being unloaded in preparation for the bullfight during the festa. Mike mocks Cohen harshly for following Brett around when he is not wanted. After a few more days of preparation, the fiesta began. The city is consumed with dancing, drinking, and general debauchery. The highlight of the first day is the bullfight at which Pedro Romero, a 19-year-old prodigy, distinguishes himself above all the other bullfighters. Despite its violence, Brett cannot take her eyes off the bullfight or Romero. A few days later, Jake and his friends are at the hotel dining room, and Brett notices Romero at a nearby table. She pursues Jake to introduce her to him. Mike again verbally abuses Cohen, and they almost come to blows before Jake diffuses the situation. Later that night, Brett asks Jake to help her find Romero, with whom she says she has fallen in love. Jake agrees to help, and Brett and Romero spend the night together. Jake then meets up with Mike and Bill, who are both extremely drunk. Cohen soon arrives, demanding to know where Brett is. After an exchange of insults, Cohen attacks Mike and Jake, knocking them both out. When Jake returns to the hotel, he finds Cohen lying face down on his bed and crying. Cohen begs Jake's forgiveness, and Jake reluctantly grants it. The next day, Jake learns from Bill and Mike that the night before, Cohen also beat up Romero when he discovered the bullfighter with Brad. Cohen later begged Romero to shake hands with him, but Romero refused. Romero fight brilliantly, dazzingly the crowd by killing a bull that had gored a man to death in the street. Afterward, he cuts the bull's